This program is produced by Eagle Mountain Apostolic Resource Center. To find additional episodes of this program, as well as other content, visit eaglemountain.tv. This program is about stewarding the word God has given. It's about putting apostolic feet to prophetic hope. It's our mission to purposefully equip the world to transform their regions with God's love. We want to create an atmosphere of divine influence to the nations by walking in the power of His Holy Spirit with the faith that shapes the future. Welcome to Inside the Ark.
Hey guys. Welcome to another episode of Inside the Ark, where we take a deep dive into the messages that we share on Sundays. I'm here with Chris and Bobby. Hey guys.
Hey. Yes.
Glad you guys are with us.
Yes.
And today we're talking about prophetic worship. So prophetic worship, oftentimes a lot of people will be like, what's the difference between prophetic worship and regular worship? And so we're going to share today a little bit of that. And Bobby shared this message. You were the one who brought this message out. And so, by the way, if you want to listen or watch the entire message, we're going to have the link to that in the show notes for you. But Bobby, go into this a little bit. What is the difference between regular worship and prophetic worship?
Okay. All worship is good. Let's just say that from the beginning. But there are things that the Lord will ask you to worship for that haven't manifested yet. So in that, they are prophetic because you are actually creating your future by what you are thanking Him for now.
Okay.
And so you get a part to play, and that's why the Bible's so full and the Psalms are so full of thanking God. Thank Him, thank Him. The password at the gate is thank you. I will enter His gates with thanksgiving in my heart. So what does thanking God do? It puts you in a prophetic stream.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with asking, right? The Bible's full of that. James talks about asking. Right. And you're fine. Jesus said, ask, seek, and knock. So you have not because you ask not, is what James said. And so there's nothing wrong with asking unless you do more of that than thanking. Asking always puts you on this side of your promise.
Right.
Thanking puts you on that side of your promise. And it causes you to be prophetic, especially when you thank Him on this side of your promise. It's one thing to thank Him on that side, but an early on encounter that I had with the Lord where I saw the people of Israel partying on the other side of the Red Sea after the great deliverance and the sea closed over all the enemies. And I was like, wow. And all the people were dancing and all of that the Bible talks about. And then I was standing with the Lord on this side of the Red Sea. And He says, man, I wish they had the faith to worship me like this on this side.
Yeah, before it happened.
Before it happened. I'm actually reading that right now in the Bible while you're talking about that. But Chris,
I was just going to say, so just to clarify, when you say thankful on this side, you mean before we have experienced whatever it is, we're as thankful as we will be or should be after we've experienced whatever it is.
Yes. I think somehow your thank you on this side before it manifests actually contributes to your level of worship on that side once it manifests.
Wow. Yeah.
And it puts you into what I would call prophetic worship. Think about this. Think about how you worship. You might be 80 years old and you might be like this. Well, I mean, if you're talking about my level of movement on a Sunday or at a conference, whether I dance like I did when I was 12 or whatever, listen, I will just say this, the manifestation of freedom is worship. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. That's what happened on the other side is the manifestation of freedom is worship. However, how do you draw into that, tap into that manifestation on this side of your promise?
Right.
And that's what I'm talking about. So your worship is a measuring rod of your freedom. So you don't have to wait because what Jesus did on the cross, He did 2,000 years ago. So we can tap into that right now.
Right.
Well, and as I'm reading through the book of Joshua, I'm thinking about, the spies he sent in.
Yeah.
Okay. The spies, as they went in, they had to cross that river.
They did.
Yeah.
So they actually crossed beforehand.
Yeah.
Before everybody else.
That's right.
Okay. So
Twice. There and back.
Yes. And they're going in to spy out the land. And a lot of times I think the prophetic goes in and spies out the promise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then comes back and says, it's good.
Yeah.
And let's go. You know, it's that encouragement and that inspiration
really
to we can do this. We can cross over. We can believe. We can have hope, for the promise.
Oh, that's really good.
And it's one of those things, I love the way that you said that, because it's one of those things where everybody saw the same thing, but they came back with really different perspectives. And I would propose that one perspective was man's perspective and one perspective was actually God's perspective.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the perspective of man's perspective, you botch up the opportunity to go into the promised land.
Really good.
So they saw the same thing.
Yeah.
But without saying, what is God showing me?
Yes.
They just look at it and they're like, oh my goodness, we are toast. These are giants, or whatever the context is of the situation we're talking about. Then you come back with a truth that's not the truth. I'm not saying there's many truths, okay? But I'm saying, like, depending on how you look at it, you're either understanding what God's trying to show you or you're not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The truth was there were peoples over there that were scary, but without the perspective of God saying, yeah, but I'll take care of that, you're like, what can we do?
Yeah.
And so it's so important that we actually approach what we're seeing and hearing through the lens of what God is trying to illustrate to us. It's kind of like this cliche, what happens when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade kind of thing. What happens when life gives you giants? Are you going to, hide out for decades, or are you going to go enjoy the promised land or whatever?
Wow.
Yes. And so here, and we're talking about worship. Okay.
Yeah.
So worship is definitely not just singing, but there are 7 Hebrew words for praise.
Right.
And, a lot of that has to do with singing or making a song,
Right.
Creating music of some sort. But going back to the story of Joshua in the book of Joshua, here he is telling the Levite priests, okay, they're the ones that carry the ark. What did the ark symbolize? The presence of God.
Yeah.
So he's saying, you carry the ark, you walk into the river and stand there.
Right.
So they're literally standing with the presence of God in the water, because it says in the Jordan.
Right.
It didn't say like the waters were parting at that point or anything.
Right.
They had to stand in the water with the presence of God. So they were worshiping God, carrying his presence into the water as a sign that God in his presence was with them, that they could go into and they could continue to move forward and to walk into the promises of God because his presence was with them.
Right.
And that's the prophetic. That's a great, I think, picture and symbol of the prophetic worship that we're talking about. It's, making sure we're carrying. Now, God has said we are all priests. So we all are carriers of his presence now. So how then do we carry his presence into forward movement of our lives?
Well, I love the way that you brought that up, because it ties into what you were saying, Bobby, because I didn't realize that. So they go into the water.
Yeah.
It's like they're declaring before stuff happens, just like you were saying. Like,
yes,
it's a prophetic picture. I mean, I believe it's we're supposed to see it as a picture of no, in advance, we know if we've got the presence, things are going to be work according to God's will.
Yeah.
And we have confidence in that.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times we're like, well, as soon as you part the river, then we'll proceed.
Right. Right.
Because that just seems wise.
Yeah.
And then you can Christianize it by saying, well, I want to make sure I'm in God's will.
Right.
But
I want to do it right.
But he's actually saying, get in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Joshua 3:13, it says, when the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth shall rest in the Jordan, then the waters of the Jordan coming down from above shall be cut off, and they shall stand in one heap. They had to get wet. And he talks about how they had to get wet first.
That's crazy.
Guys, I mean, let's talk about this in a different context too. You know, prophetic worship being a life of not just singing, because we talked about it. It is singing, it is praising, but it's a life of praise. Right. You know, and if we go into the 7 Hebrew words of praise, the differences that or the different definitions there are amazing. And you know, like Toda, confession, praise, thanksgiving. So if we carry the presence of God, the ark, we're carrying it, and we're carrying it everywhere, and we're having the confession, the praise, and the thanksgiving everywhere, then we are carrying the presence of God.
That is so good.
Into every situation that we're going through, to every part of our lives.
Wow.
And now what are we doing? We are showing the revelation of Jesus through carrying his presence into every situation and circumstance. Bobby,
that's amazing.
Sorry.
That's just like overwhelmingly powerful.
Yes.
Now think about prophetic praise on those who worshiped prior to Jesus coming. I mean, they were constantly filling the earth with prophetic praise. I mean, some of the songs that were written and, oh, how marvelous are your works. And all of that were like, they had to view it before Jesus came and went to the cross and died and rose again. They were walking in prophetic praise. And a lot of the places that Jesus walked, if you follow his journey during his 3.5-year ministry, he actually went to the places that those prophets and minstrels wrote those songs so that he could walk on ground that was praised.
Well,
he walked on praised ground.
Well, and so I've heard it this way too. When he walked on water, he was actually, the water was compelled by the praise of the people to create the platform from which he stood.
Yes. So when you tap into that,
I love that.
And you tap into that great cloud of witnesses.
Yeah.
And they worshiped the Lord and praised him as if he had already accomplished this.
Yeah.
It was said of Abraham that he longed to see the day of the Lord, and he saw it.
Yeah.
So that's when, so go back to that scripture that you were just reading, Joshua 3.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the priest getting wet and getting in the river.
Yeah.
Well, what happens when they did and they entered into prophetic worship? Read verse 16 of chapter 3.
Then the waters which came down from above stood and rose up in a heap far off at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan, and those flowing down toward the Sea of Arabah, the Dead Sea, were wholly cut off, and the people passed over opposite Jericho.
Wow.
So they didn't do the thing like you envision, like Charleston Heston, like the Red Sea. It started from there and came down. Is that what that's saying?
Yeah.
I've always pictured this kind of like the Red Sea parting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you hear that? The waters were rolled back from that spot all the way to a town called Adam.
Yes.
All the way back to the beginning.
Yes, exactly. All the way back to the first man and woman who gave him praise on this planet before they ever crossed over into their promise.
Yeah.
You can't make that stuff up. It just so happens that the waters were rolled back all the way to Adam.
Right.
That's not just the name of a town. That's prophetic.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
And so when we enter into that kind of praise before things happen, we enter into the praise of a great cloud of witnesses who believed God as though it was already a done deal.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what does that mean for us? How do we prophetically worship like they were then?
Yeah.
By carrying the presence of God where it's still going forward.
Yeah.
We're still carrying his presence. We're still parting that sea that divides us from God.
And we're still stepping out with boldness and confidence and getting our feet wet.
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
Yes. Halal, it means to shine, to rave, to praise, to boast, to be clamorously foolish, and to act madly.
Okay, what does act madly mean? I just think about this. I was talking to the youth about this the other day because we're going through the 7 Hebrew words of praise. And I was thinking about how David, to his wife looked like he was mad.
Absolute moron.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Jesus in his dance and twirl and perhaps to some maybe looked like he was, act madly. So who are we to judge when somebody's doing something, people?
Yes,
we
that's
just
right.
can't.
Be careful.
That's right.
Be careful.
We've got some dancers in our congregation that you can just tell, all right, you guys make dancing look good. You make us all look good.
Yeah.
It's like, and then the rest of you, we all have no business dancing, except that's wrong.
Except that's wrong, yeah.
Because God wants us to act madly, foolishly. And if that's not something that you are, that fits your disposition, then ask the Lord about it. Lord, how do I praise you in halal worship?
Yeah.
Yada means to revere, to worship, to give thanks. It's kind of what we've been talking about giving thanks. That's where yada comes in. And to lift up hands. So that's with the reverence side, I give thanks. It might not be dancing foolishly, but the person who loves to do yada, now they're learning to halal and dance. But the person who is also easy to dance and quick to dance, they're learning how to revere God, how to worship him, and how to give thanks and lift up holy hands. Barak means to bless, to kneel, and even to salute.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
It's more of a reverent.
The kids were like, salute. And I'm like, dude, yes, sir.
Yes.
My answer to the Lord is yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. Here's a prophetic part of worship that I love. It's tehillah. We always ask our worshipers, make sure you step into this side. Make sure you drink some tehillah and make sure that you are constantly learning how to flow in prophetic praise. If you can't get there and your heart is locked up, let's get some inner healing. Let's get some freedom so that we can, God forbid you'd be on a worship team and be locked up. Right? So that tehillah means it's the song or a hymn of praise. It's a spontaneous expression of a spiritual song. Zamar means to make music. It means to sing praise, to play a musical instrument, to pluck, or to twang.
Twang.
It's all about Southern people.
You can't say it like the Southern. Sorry.
Sorry.
You tried. Good. It was good. Twang.
Twang.
Yeah. It's in the note. It's somewhere in this area.
Yes.
The notes
Yes.
you say it. Twang.
Your people have that.
My people do.
Todah means confession. Wow, that's praise? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Confession, praise, and again, with a confession with a thanksgiving side added to it. So, Lord, I confess, but I thank you that there's mercy for me.
Right.
Shabak, which means to exclaim or to shout, to laud, to praise, to commend. It's that exuberant shout. And I love that. I love getting into worship. And again, we're probably prone to pick 2 or 3 out of those and go, oh, that's me. And the Lord's like, man, you're missing out on so much prophetic worship that could be actually keys to your breakthrough if you would just learn these things.
Okay, so I just want to bring up something that I oftentimes hear but don't hear. So it's like it's in the idea and the mind of some people where they come into a place and we're like in our what we call worship time, which is when we're singing praises to God. We have the band playing, we're all singing, and everybody in the congregation, everybody who's not on the stage, Some of them are dancing around, moving, doing their hands, singing, whatever. Some literally just stand there and do nothing. And when some of them, it's because maybe it's new or whatever's going on. But there are some that I actually have heard say, well, that's what they do. I don't do that.
Ooh.
And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? We are all, because we are all priests.
Oh, good.
And because we are all carrying the ark, there are two sides to the ark.
Come on.
So we've got our worship team carrying one side.
Yeah.
But if you can visualize the worship team on the stage is carrying one side, the other side is open for who?
Yeah.
The rest of the people
Absolutely.
to lift and hold up and carry. We are both to carry.
This isn't a battle of the pianos.
Of God,
Ooh,
right?
Come on.
And to praise and to worship Him,
Right.
in whatever form that's taking in that moment. So when we come together, I love when people are able to be with us in person because we get to feel and experience that together.
Yeah.
But if there's not an understanding of that, you're missing out. There's so much you're
that's so
missing
good.
out on.
Yeah.
And that slides right into, wow me with your performance.
Ooh.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like inadvertently, it ends up there.
Right. We did our best to get us
Totally.
here. Now go.
Right.
Wow me. Yeah. And that you're right. And then, so what happens when we don't carry both sides of the ark? It falls over and it's dragging on the ground.
Yeah.
You got those guys wondering why spiritually they're just exhausted.
Right.
And they don't even know it. They're like, a couple songs into their set and they're just like, dude, I'm just like, I feel like I'm stuck in quicksand.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you don't know this and you shouldn't be judgmental against the people anyway. But what's really happening in the spirit is you're carrying both sides of the ark right now. Yeah. And so if you've got someone who's can sense that in the environment, that speaker or point person or MC should get up there and go, all right, let's go, and help the people pick back up their side of the ark. And the next thing you know, we've got flow again and movement. But sometimes you can often, if you don't pick up on this, your worship leaders will be burnt because they're carrying both sides of the ark.
Frustrated and
Yes.
yeah. I mean, I've even heard you in the middle of a work. Actually, it was after service, but the worship was happening, and you're like, okay, hold on, you guys just need to stop because right now you're carrying both sides of the ark.
That's right.
Yes.
I need these guys to step up.
Yeah.
And I think that without that awareness, you just create an environment where then it becomes like, it just becomes part of the normal culture. And then that's always happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's where worship shifts beyond sort of prophetic worship in the moment to entertainment. And you'll notice that when it's like, okay, this isn't happening. Now, should there be freedom to the guy who says, well, I can't dance like you all and tehillah up like you all. I don't know how to do these things. And so here's what I say to that. In the Bible, when the priest would say, let's shout.
Yeah.
If you were the guy at the walls of Jericho that day and you were like, not much of a shouter.
Not really a shouter.
It's not my it's not my, what do you call it?
It's not my calling.
It's not my calling.
Let me pray about it.
Yeah.
My disposition.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not my disposition. I'm not much of a shouter. Yeah, pick somebody else. Can you imagine? So what is the room doing? You can be sensitive and aware congregationally. And this is why we need a congregation, because at your house, you can do whatever you feel, whatever you want. And you're not sure of how do I enter into something that I'm being called to, that I'm not the one judging the atmosphere. There's someone else calling me that I trust from the stage saying, oh no, now's not the time. 80% of this whole set, you're fine to sit down, but not this moment. Stand up, everyone, clap, shout, let's go for it. And so in those moments where you've got a leader whose job is, and there's grace on him or her to tap into the presence, and they invite you to shout one holy shout together or to be super quiet, don't disrupt that. Go with the flow that's in the room and trust your leadership, but don't get caught folding your hands when the wall coming down depends on your all in.
Whoa.
That's awesome.
Say that one more time. Don't be
get caught
Yeah.
holding your hand
Oof.
when the wall coming down depends on your shout. Enter in.
That's good.
Understand, we're not here in any congregation or a conference or whatever just to be entertained. We're here to go, God, what are you doing? And how can I add my voice to that moment of singing, praise, the 7 Hebrew words? What's God doing in the room? Why wasn't there one word instead of 7? That's because God's doing all kinds of things. And if we're sensitive, we'll go, what of the 7 are you doing right now? And how can I flow with it? That's sensitivity to the Holy Spirit. That's prophetic worship. What is God doing now?
That is good.
Well, awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Again, the link to this message will be in the show notes so that you can check that out. And we sure appreciate you joining us today. Check out our app, Eagle Mountain Bend, on any of the platforms that you have for a device, and download our app and find more of these awesome episodes. Did I say that right, Chris?
Yes. You did. They're there
while.
for you to get.
They are. And also, see how you can partner with us, but also make an impact that goes beyond just, you share these messages with your friends and family, and also donate funds toward making an impact in our global church and in our environment by financially giving to us so we can make more of these.
I love it.
Excellent.
Yep.
Great.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Inside the Ark. We hope that you've been blessed by this program. If you'd like to discover other episodes of Inside the Ark, please visit eaglemountain.global. We'd also love for you to prayerfully consider supporting this and other programs available on Eagle Mountain TV. You can give to this ministry by visiting eaglemountain.global and clicking on the Give tab. We hope to see you in the next episode.